The notification chimed on my phone just as Ethan walked into the kitchen. My heart jumped, and I quickly flipped the device face down on the granite counter, but not before catching Lucas's name on the screen. The familiar thrill of our secret made my pulse quicken. "Morning, beautiful," Ethan said, his voice carrying that tired edge it had developed over the past few months. He moved to the coffee maker, his movements deliberate and measured like everything else about my husband. I forced a smile, sliding the phone into my purse. "Morning, honey. You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." He poured his coffee, steam rising between us. "You came in late again last night. I heard you around midnight." The accusation hung in the air, disguised as casual conversation. I laughed, the sound coming out sharper than I intended. "It wasn't midnight, Ethan. Maybe 11:30. We had that emergency meeting about the Henderson account, remember? I told you yesterday." "Right, the Henderson account." He sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim. "Funny thing is, I called your office around 10:30. Sarah said everyone had left by 9. My stomach tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. This was exactly the kind of paranoid behavior that had been driving me toward Lucas in the first place. Ethan's constant need to monitor and question everything I did was suffocating. "Sarah left early," I said, opening the refrigerator to hide my face. "The meeting was with Lucas and the senior staff. You know how these things run long." "Lucas Grant, your department head." "Yes, Lucas Grant, my department head. The same Lucas I've worked with for 3 years, Ethan. Why are you acting like this is some big revelation?" I grabbed the orange juice, slamming the fridge door harder than necessary. When I turned around, Ethan was still watching me with that calculating look I'd grown to hate. "I'm not acting like anything, Mireille. I'm just trying to understand why my wife's schedule has become so unpredictable lately." "My schedule?" I laughed again, pouring juice into a glass with shaking hands. "I work hard, Ethan. Some of us don't have the luxury of leaving the office at exactly 5 o'clock every day like accountants do." The dig hit its mark. I saw his jaw tighten, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked to the kitchen table where his laptop sat open, surrounded by neat stacks of papers. Everything in Ethan's world had its place, every number balanced, every detail accounted for. It was one of the things that had attracted me to him initially. His stability, his reliability. Now it felt like living with an auditor. "Mommy." Isabelle's small voice interrupted the tension. Our 8-year-old daughter stood in the doorway, still in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" My heart clenched. "No, sweetheart. We're just talking about work stuff. Boring grown-up things." But Isabelle's dark eyes, so much like Ethan's, moved between us with an awareness that made me uncomfortable. She'd been quieter lately, spending more time in her room, less eager to share stories about school. I told myself it was just a phase, but seeing her now, small and uncertain in the doorway, I wondered if our tension was more obvious than I'd thought. "Come here, princess," Ethan said, his voice immediately softening. He opened his arms, and Isabelle ran to him, climbing onto his lap. "Want some pancakes before school?" "Can we have the Mickey Mouse ones?" "Of course we can." I watched them together, father and daughter, and felt a familiar pang of guilt mixed with resentment. Ethan was a good father, patient, attentive, present in ways that made my own absences more glaring. But that didn't excuse his recent behavior, the way he'd been watching me, questioning my every move. My phone buzzed in my purse. Without thinking, I reached for it, then caught myself when I saw Ethan's eyes flick toward the sound. "Probably just work," I said casually, but left the phone where it was. "On a Saturday morning?" You know how it is in HR. Employee issues don't follow a schedule. It wasn't entirely a lie. I did work in HR, though as an assistant, not the senior position I sometimes implied to Lucas. And there were occasionally weekend calls, though not usually at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. Ethan didn't respond, just continued making pancakes while Isabelle chatted about her upcoming school project. The domestic scene should have been comforting, but I felt trapped, like an actress playing a role I'd grown tired of. My phone buzzed again. This time, Ethan's glance was sharp, unmistakable. Maybe you should answer it, if it's that important. The challenge in his voice made my defenses flare. Maybe I don't want to deal with work drama during family breakfast. Maybe I want to enjoy this time with my husband and daughter without you making me feel guilty about having a demanding job. I'm not making you feel guilty about anything, Mireille. I'm just noticing patterns. Patterns? I set down my juice glass, hard enough that some sloshed onto the counter. What patterns? Isabelle looked up from her plate, syrup-covered fork halfway to her mouth. The happiness had drained from her face, replaced by that watchful, worried expression I'd been seeing too often lately. Ethan noticed too. He smoothed Isabelle's hair and kept his voice level. We can talk about this later. But I was beyond caring about later. The phone had buzzed a third time, and I knew it was Lucas. Probably wondering about our plans for Monday, or maybe just sending one of those flirty messages that made me feel alive again, desired, interesting. Everything Ethan's suspicious glances and careful questions made me feel I wasn't. No, let's talk about it now, I said. I want to understand what patterns my husband thinks he's seeing in his wife's behavior. Mireille, because from where I'm sitting, the only pattern I see is you becoming increasingly paranoid and controlling. Checking up on me at work, timing my arrivals home, questioning every phone call. Is this the kind of marriage you want? Is this the example you want to set for Isabelle? I gestured toward our daughter, who had stopped eating entirely and was staring at us with wide, frightened eyes. Using her as ammunition felt wrong, even as I did it, but I was cornered and angry and tired of feeling like a suspect in my own home. Ethan's face went very still. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried an edge I'd never heard before. The only example I want to set for Isabelle is honesty. I want her to grow up knowing that people who love each other tell each other the truth. The words hit like a slap. For a moment I couldn't breathe, couldn't think of a response that wouldn't sound like exactly what it was. Deflection and lies. My phone buzzed again. This time I grabbed it, partly out of defiance and partly because I needed something to do with my hands. The screen showed 4 messages from Lucas, each one making my chest tighten with a mixture of excitement and panic. Thinking about you. Can't wait for Monday. You looked incredible yesterday. Call me when you can. I deleted them quickly, muscle memory from weeks of practice, but when I looked up, Ethan was watching me, not my face, my hands. The quick, practiced way I'd swiped and deleted without really reading. Work emergency handled, he asked. Yes. The word came out too quickly, too sharp. Good. He turned back to Isabelle, who was pushing pancake pieces around her plate. Finish up, princess. We need to get you ready for Emma's birthday party. I'd forgotten about the party, another small failure in a growing list. What time does it start? Noon. I already wrapped the gift and put it by the door. Of course he had. Ethan never forgot anything, never let details slip through the cracks. It was admirable and infuriating in equal measure. I should probably stay home, I said. Catch up on some things. Like work? The question sounded innocent, but I caught the underlying skepticism. Like laundry and grocery shopping and all the other things that keep this household running. It was a low blow, implying that I handled more domestic responsibilities than I actually did. Ethan did most of the grocery shopping, and our housekeeper handled the bulk of the laundry. But it sounded good, sounded like something a devoted wife and mother would say. Ethan didn't call me on it, just nodded and helped Isabelle down from her chair. Come on, sweetheart, let's get you dressed. They left me alone in the kitchen with my phone and my guilt and the lingering smell of pancakes I hadn't eaten. I waited until I heard Isabelle's bedroom door close, then quickly called Lucas. He answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call. Just hearing his voice made my pulse quicken. Lucas had a way of speaking that made everything sound intimate, important. Even mundane work conversations felt charged with possibility when filtered through his deep, slightly rough voice. "I can't talk long," I whispered, moving to the window to watch for Ethan. "Rough morning at home?" "You could say that. Ethan's being difficult. Suspicious difficult, or just husband difficult?" The question sent a chill through me. "What do you mean?" "Nothing specific. Just that office gossip travels fast, and we haven't been as careful as we could be." My mouth went dry. "What kind of gossip?" "The usual. People notice when two colleagues spend a lot of time together, especially when one of them is married to someone else." "Are you worried about Lila finding out?" There was a pause. Lucas's wife was a topic we rarely discussed directly. She existed in the periphery of our affair, a shadow we both acknowledged but tried not to examine too closely. "Lila's not stupid," he said finally, "and neither is your husband, from what you've told me. Ethan doesn't know anything. He's just being paranoid. Maybe, or maybe he knows more than you think." The possibility made my stomach churn. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to be smarter, more careful. This thing between us, it's good, Mireille, really good, but it's not worth destroying everything for." His words should have been reassuring, but they felt like a warning instead, like he was preparing to pull back, to protect himself and his marriage at my expense. "Are you having second thoughts?" I asked. "I'm having realistic thoughts. There's a difference." Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. "I have to go." "Mireille." I hung up and shoved the phone back in my purse just as Ethan appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd changed into jeans and a polo shirt, and his hair was still damp from the shower. For a moment, looking at him, I remembered why I'd fallen in love with him. He was handsome in a quiet, steady way. Reliable. Safe. But safe had started to feel like boring, and reliable had started to feel like predictable. Lucas made me feel alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. "Ready to go?" Ethan asked. "I thought I was staying home." "I thought you might change your mind. Isabelle would like you there." The guilt hit fresh and sharp. "Of course. Let me just grab my purse." But as I reached for it, my phone buzzed again. Ethan's eyes went immediately to the sound, and I saw something shift in his expression. Not anger, exactly. Something colder. More calculating. "Popular morning," he said. "It's probably just Mom." I didn't check to see if it was true. Couldn't risk it with Ethan watching. But as we gathered Isabelle and headed for the car, I felt the weight of his attention, like a physical thing, pressing against my secrets until I could barely breathe. The birthday party was torture. 2 hours of forced smiles and small talk with other parents, while Ethan played the perfect husband and father. He was charming and attentive, helping with party games and cleaning up spilled juice, making conversation with the other dads about sports and work. I watched him and felt the familiar mixture of pride and resentment. This was the man I'd married, kind, dependable, good with children, but it was also the man who questioned my every move, who made me feel like a suspect in my own life. "Your husband's wonderful with kids," said Jennifer Chen, Emma's mother. "Isabelle's lucky to have such an involved dad." "Yes," I agreed, watching Ethan help a group of children with a craft project. "He's very involved." The word came out sharper than I intended, and Jennifer gave me a curious look. I forced a smile and excused myself to use the bathroom, but really, I just needed a moment alone with my phone. Lucas had sent 2 more messages. "We need to talk. Something's not right." My hand shook as I typed back, "What do you mean?" His response came immediately. "Call me tonight, after he's asleep." I deleted the conversation and rejoined the party, but the rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of anxiety and forced normalcy. Every time Ethan looked at me, I wondered what he was thinking, what he might suspect. On the drive home, Isabelle chattered excitedly about the party from her car seat, but I could barely focus on her words. My mind was spinning with possibilities, each one worse than the last. "You're quiet," Ethan observed. "Just tired. It's been a long week." "Has it? Seems like you've been energized lately. More engaged." There was something in his tone that made me look at him sharply, but his eyes were on the road, his expression neutral. "I don't know what you mean." "Just that you seem happier. More excited about work, about life in general. It's nice to see." The words sounded like a compliment, but they felt like a trap. I stared out the passenger window at the familiar suburban streets and wondered when my marriage had become a minefield where every conversation held hidden dangers. That night, after Isabelle was asleep and Ethan had retreated to his home office with his laptop and files, I finally called Lucas back. "Thank God," he said when he answered. "I've been going crazy." "What's wrong? You're scaring me." "Lila asked about you today, specifically about you." My blood turned to ice. "What did she say?" "She wanted to know how long we'd been working together, what projects we collaborate on. She was casual about it, but Lila doesn't ask casual questions." "What did you tell her?" "The truth, that you're in HR and we work together sometimes on personnel issues." But she kept pushing, asking if you were the one who'd been calling the house. "I've never called your house." "I know that, but someone has. 3 times this week, hanging up when Lila answers." My mind raced. "It wasn't me, Lucas. I swear." "Then who?" I didn't have an answer, but suddenly, Ethan's questions, his careful watching, his late nights in the office took on a different meaning. What if he wasn't just suspicious? What if he actually knew something? "We need to stop," Lucas said quietly, "at least for a while, until things cool down." "You're ending this?" The words came out as a whisper. "I'm protecting this, and us. If Lila finds out, if your husband finds out, it won't just be our jobs on the line, Mireille. It'll be everything." After he hung up, I sat in the dark living room, staring at my phone and trying to make sense of the pieces. The mysterious calls to Lucas's house, Ethan's increased attention to my schedule, the office gossip Lucas had mentioned. A sound from upstairs made me look up. Ethan was standing at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the hallway light. "Everything okay?" he called down. "Fine, just checking my email." "At 11 o'clock at night?" "You know how it is. Work never stops." He didn't respond immediately, just stood there looking down at me. Finally, he said, "I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late." "I'll be up in a minute." But I didn't move until I heard his bedroom door close. Then I sat there in the darkness, wondering how long he'd been standing there, how much he might have heard, and what exactly was waiting for me upstairs in the bed I shared with my husband. Monday morning at Meridian Financial Services felt different. The usual buzz of conversation seemed muted, and I caught several colleagues glancing my way before quickly looking away. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe Lucas had been right about office gossip traveling fast. I settled at my desk in the HR department, trying to focus on employee files and benefits paperwork, but my mind kept drifting to Lucas's office 3 floors up. We'd agreed to keep our distance, but the weekend had felt endless, without our usual flirty text exchanges and stolen moments. "Morning, Mireille." Sarah Chen, my cubicle neighbor, appeared with her usual coffee and concerned expression. "How was your weekend?" "Fine. Quiet." I kept my eyes on my computer screen, not trusting myself to make eye contact. "That's good. Sometimes quiet is exactly what we need." She paused, and I could feel her watching me, especially when work gets complicated. The word hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning I wasn't sure I wanted to decode. Sarah was one of the few people in the office who knew about my late-night meetings with Lucas, though I'd always framed them as work-related. "Is there something you want to say, Sarah?" "Just that if you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here. We've been friends for 3 years, Mireille. I care about you." Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach drop. Ethan's office number. Hi, honey, I answered, forcing brightness into my voice. Hey, quick question. Did you take cash out of our joint account last Friday? My mouth went dry. I had taken cash, $200, to pay for the hotel room Lucas and I had used during our extended lunch meeting. But Ethan wasn't supposed to check the account that closely. He handled the investments and major bills. I managed the day-to-day expenses. I might have. Why? Just balancing the books. What was it for? Sarah was pretending to work at her desk, but I could tell she was listening. I turned my chair away, lowering my voice. I don't remember exactly. Groceries, maybe? Or that gift for Isabelle's friend's birthday party. I have the receipt for the gift. It was $23, and you used your credit card. The precision of his memory, the careful way he laid out the facts, made me feel like I was being cross-examined. Ethan, I don't keep a mental catalogue of every cash withdrawal. If you're worried about money, I'm not worried about money. I'm worried about patterns. There was that word again. Patterns. Like I was a spreadsheet he was trying to balance, a puzzle he was determined to solve. I have to go, I said. I'm at work. Right, work. Have a good day, Mireille. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone and wondering how a simple question about cash had felt like an interrogation. Everything okay? Sarah asked. Fine, just husband stuff. But it wasn't fine, and the morning only got worse. At 10:30, I received an email from Lucas asking me to come to his office to discuss the Morrison personnel file. It was our usual code for wanting to see each other, but given our conversation Friday night, I wasn't sure what to expect. His office was on the executive floor, all glass and polished wood and carefully arranged awards. Lucas sat behind his mahogany desk, looking every inch the successful department head in his tailored suit and silk tie. When I'd first started working at Meridian, I'd been intimidated by him. Now, the sight of him made my pulse quicken for entirely different reasons. Close the door, he said without looking up from his computer. I did, then took the seat across from his desk. You wanted to see me about Morrison? There is no Morrison file. He finally looked at me, and I saw tension in his dark eyes. We need to talk. I thought we agreed to keep our distance. We did, but something's happened. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. This was delivered to my house Saturday night. No return address, no postmark. Someone dropped it off personally. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. Inside were printed copies of text messages, our text messages, dozens of them, spanning the past month. The flirty good mornings, the lunch plans, the increasingly intimate exchanges that had led to our first kiss 3 weeks ago. Oh God, I whispered. There's more. He handed me a second sheet. It was a hotel receipt from the Marriott downtown, dated the previous Friday. The same hotel where we'd spent 2 hours pretending to have a business lunch while actually discovering just how good we were together. How did someone get these? I don't know. But look at the bottom of the last page. I flipped to the final sheet and saw a handwritten note in neat, precise handwriting. Interesting reading. We should talk. A friend. A friend, I repeated. What does that mean? I think it means someone knows about us, and they're not planning to keep it quiet. I sank back in my chair, my mind racing through possibilities. Do you think it's Lila? The handwriting doesn't look like hers, and this isn't her style. If Lila suspected something, she'd confront me directly. Then who? Before he could answer, his desk phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and frowned. It's my wife. My stomach clenched as he answered. Hi, honey. What's up? I could hear Lila's voice through the speaker, though I couldn't make out the words. Lucas's face grew increasingly tense as he listened. When? He asked. Are you sure? No, don't do anything. I'll handle it. I'll be home early tonight. We'll talk then. He hung up and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, fear mixed with resignation. What did she say? Someone called her this morning. A man. He said he had information about my extracurricular activities and that she might want to know what her husband does during his lunch hours. The room felt like it was spinning. Did she believe him? She's not sure what to believe, but she's asking questions, Mireille. About you specifically. About me. She wants to know why your name keeps coming up in connection with my work. She's noticed that I mention you more often than other colleagues. I thought about all the times I'd casually drop Lucas's name in conversations with Ethan, the way I'd started talking about work projects that didn't exist, just to have an excuse to say his name. Had I been that obvious? We have to end this, Lucas said quietly. Today. Now. Because someone is threatening us? Because I'm not willing to lose my marriage over an affair. The words hit like a slap. This was supposed to be fun, Mireille, harmless, but it's turning into something that could destroy both our lives. I stared at him, this man who had made me feel alive and desirable and important, and realized he was already pulling away, protecting himself and his marriage while leaving me exposed and vulnerable. So that's it? Someone sends a few threatening notes, and you just walk away? What did you expect? That we'd run away together? That I'd leave my wife and kids for an affair that's lasted 3 weeks? The casual cruelty of his words made me flinch. I thought it meant something to you. It did, it does, but not more than my family, my career, my reputation. I stood up, clutching the envelope of evidence. What am I supposed to do with these? Destroy them, deny everything if anyone asks, hope whoever sent them is just trying to scare us, not actually planning to expose us. And if they do expose us? Lucas straightened his tie, already shifting back into professional mode. Then we deal with it, separately. The dismissal was clear. I walked to his door, then turned back. You're a coward, Lucas. Maybe, but I'm a coward who's going to keep his job and his marriage. I left his office feeling hollowed out and angry. The elevator ride back to my floor seemed endless, and when I finally reached my desk, Sarah took one look at my face and immediately came over. What happened? Nothing, just work stress. Mireille, you look like you've seen a ghost. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, I thought it might be Lucas, maybe apologizing or suggesting we find a way to work through this together. Instead, it was from a number I didn't recognize. Having a nice day at work? Your husband might be interested in knowing how you really spend your lunch hours. Check your locker. My hand started shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Sarah grabbed my arm. What is it? You're white as a sheet. I need to... I'll be right back. I stumbled toward the employee break room where the lockers were located, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My locker was number 47, third row from the bottom. I fumbled with the combination lock, my fingers refusing to cooperate. Finally, it clicked open. Inside, on top of my spare sweater and emergency snacks, was another manila envelope. This one contained photos. Lucas and me entering the Marriott Hotel. Lucas and me in his car, parked behind the building during what was supposed to be a discreet lunch meeting. Lucas's hand on my back as we walked into a restaurant across town, the one we'd chosen specifically because none of our colleagues frequented it. The photos were time-stamped and dated, spanning the past 2 weeks. Someone had been following us, documenting our affair with methodical precision. At the bottom of the stack was another handwritten note. Pretty pictures. I'm sure your families would love to see them. We'll be in touch. I shoved the photos back in the envelope and slammed my locker shut, but not before noticing that several other employees were in the break room, including Tom Morrison from accounting and Jennifer Walsh from marketing. They were trying to look busy, but I caught them exchanging glances. Mireille, Sarah had followed me. What's going on? Nothing. I'm fine. But I wasn't fine. I was trapped in a nightmare that was spiraling further out of control with each passing hour. Someone was watching me, threatening me, and I had no idea who or why or what they ultimately wanted. My phone rang. Ethan again. Hi, I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm going to be late tonight, working on the Patterson audit. Okay. Will you be home for dinner, or do you have another late meeting? The question sounded innocent, but I heard the underlying suspicion. I'll be home. Good. We need to talk. About what? About us, Mireille. About what's been happening to our marriage. The line went dead, leaving me standing in the break room with an envelope full of incriminating photos and the growing certainty that my carefully constructed double life was about to collapse around me. I made it through the rest of the day by focusing on mundane tasks, filing reports, updating employee records, returning routine phone calls. But every few minutes, my phone would buzz with another anonymous text. Enjoying your afternoon? Your secret's safe with me. For now. Tick-tock, Mireille. By 5 o'clock, I was ready to scream. I packed up my desk, said goodbye to Sarah, and headed for the parking garage. As I walked to my car, I had the distinct feeling I was being watched, but every time I turned around, I saw only other employees heading home from work. The drive home was a blur of anxiety and racing thoughts. Who could be doing this? Someone from the office who had noticed our affair and decided to use it against us. A private investigator hired by Lila or Ethan, a stranger with some twisted agenda. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, staring at my house. From the outside, it looked perfect. Suburban dream home with its manicured lawn and flower boxes. Inside, waited my husband and daughter, my normal life, the world I'd been risking for stolen moments with Lucas. But normal felt like a costume I was no longer sure how to wear. Ethan's car wasn't in the garage yet, which meant I had a few minutes alone with Isabelle. I found her in the living room, doing homework at the coffee table while some animated movie played on the television. Hi, baby, I said, kissing the top of her head. How was school? Okay. She didn't look up from her math worksheet. Mrs. Patterson called Daddy at work today. My stomach dropped. Why? Because I was crying in class and I wouldn't tell her why. I knelt beside her, studying her small, serious face. Why were you crying, sweetheart? I don't know. I just felt sad. About anything specific? She shrugged, still not meeting my eyes. Are you and Daddy getting divorced? The question hit like a physical blow. Why would you ask that? Emma's parents got divorced last year. First they started fighting all the time. Then her daddy moved out. You and Daddy fight now. We don't fight, Isabelle. We just discuss things. It sounds like fighting to me. I pulled her into my arms, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Daddy and I love each other very much, and we both love you more than anything in the world. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, but that doesn't mean we're getting divorced. The words felt like lies in my mouth. How could I promise her stability when my own choices were threatening to destroy everything we'd built? Promise? She asked in a small voice. I promise we'll always be a family, I said, hoping it was true. Ethan arrived home 20 minutes later, carrying takeout bags from our favorite Chinese restaurant. He kissed Isabelle and nodded at me, his expression carefully neutral. Thought we could use an easy dinner, he said. We ate in relative silence, with Isabelle chattering about school and weekend plans, while Ethan and I made polite responses. It felt like we were actors in a play, going through the motions of being a happy family, while something poisonous festered beneath the surface. After dinner, Ethan helped Isabelle with her homework, while I cleaned up the kitchen. The domestic routine should have been comforting, but instead it felt like we were all walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might shatter the fragile peace. At 8:30, Ethan tucked Isabelle into bed while I finished loading the dishwasher. When he came back downstairs, he poured himself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table. We need to talk, he said. I dried my hands slowly, buying time. About what? About the fact that our marriage is falling apart, and I don't understand why. I sat across from him, studying his face. Ethan had always been handsome in a quiet way. Brown hair that was starting to show grey at the temples, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, a mouth that smiled easily when he was happy. But tonight, he looked tired and older than his 36 years. "I don't think our marriage is falling apart," I said carefully. "Don't you? When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you seemed happy to see me walk through that door?" The questions hung in the air between us, unanswerable because he was right. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt genuinely excited to see my husband, the last time I'd looked forward to spending an evening together. "Marriage goes through phases, Ethan. We're busy, we're stressed." "This isn't about being busy." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "This is about the fact that you've checked out. Emotionally, physically, mentally. You're here, but you're not really here." "That's not true, isn't it? You work late constantly. You're distracted when you are home. You guard your phone like it contains state secrets. You flinch when I touch you." Each accusation felt like a scalpel, cutting through my defenses with surgical precision. "I don't flinch when you touch me. You did last night, and the night before, and pretty much every night for the past month." I wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come, because he was right. I had been pulling away, both physically and emotionally. Lucas had awakened something in me that made my marriage feel stale and suffocating by comparison. "I'm just tired, Ethan. Work has been overwhelming." "Stop." His voice was quiet but firm. "Just stop lying to me." The word lying hit like a slap. "I'm not lying." "Then tell me about the Henderson account." My blood turned to ice. "What about it? Tell me about this emergency meeting you had Friday night that kept you out until midnight." "I already told you." "There is no Henderson account, Mireille. I called your office today and asked Sarah. She said she'd never heard of any Henderson account, and that you left work at 5:30 Friday like always." The room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to think of an explanation that would make sense, but my mind was blank. "I can explain." "Can you? Because I'd really like to hear it." His voice was calm, controlled, but I could see the hurt beneath. This was Ethan at his most dangerous, coldly logical, methodically dismantling my lies. "I wasn't at a work meeting," I said finally. "I know." I needed time to think, about us, so I drove around, then went to that coffee shop on Maple Street, the one that stays open late. "For 4.5 hours? I lost track of time." He stared at me, weighing my explanation. Finally, he nodded. "Okay." "Okay? If that's the story you want to tell me, then okay." His acceptance felt ominous, like he was collecting my lies for some future reckoning. My phone buzzed on the counter. Ethan's eyes went immediately to it. "Aren't you going to check that? It's probably just Mom. At 9 o'clock on a Monday night?" The phone buzzed twice more in quick succession. Ethan stood, walked to the counter. For a moment, I thought he'd grab my phone. Instead, he picked up his wine glass and drained it. "I'm going to bed. Try not to stay up too late with your thinking." After he left, I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. 3 messages. "How was dinner with the family? Does hubby suspect anything yet? Sweet dreams, Mireille. Tomorrow's going to be a big day." I checked the locks, peered out at the dark street. Was someone watching my house? Whatever I'd started with Lucas had grown beyond my control, threatening not just my marriage, but my daughter's security. Upstairs, Ethan wasn't asleep. He sat up in bed with his laptop, typing in the dim glow. "Working late?" I asked, "just catching up on some things." After my nighttime routine, I slipped into bed. Ethan closed his laptop. "Mireille?" "Yes?" "I love you. Whatever's going on, whatever's wrong, I want you to know that I love you and I want to fix this." The words made me want to cry. I could hear the desperation, the fear of a man sensing his marriage slipping away. "I love you too," I whispered, meaning it, even though it wasn't enough anymore. He reached for my hand in the darkness. I let him take it, even though his touch felt foreign now, Nothing like the electric thrill I felt when Lucas touched me. We lay in silence, holding hands like strangers, while my phone buzzed once more. I didn't check it, but I knew. Another threat, another reminder that my secret was no longer safe, another step toward the reckoning that was coming, whether I was ready for it or not. Romano's was crowded Wednesday night. Ethan's mother Helen had suggested we celebrate Simon's promotion to senior partner, but I suspected it was really an excuse to check on our marriage. Helen Vane noticed everything: a misplaced word, forced smile, the tension between couples trying too hard to appear happy. "This is nice," I said, settling into my chair. "It's been too long since we all got together." Ethan sat beside me, Simon across with his girlfriend Rebecca, and Helen at the head, like the matriarch she'd become. The empty chair beside her remained. She still set a place for her late husband at family dinners, touching and slightly unsettling. "You look tired, dear," Helen said, studying my face. "Are you feeling all right?" "Just busy at work. I've never understood why young mothers need such demanding jobs. When I was raising the boys, family came first." Simon cleared his throat. "So, Mireille, how's work going? Ethan mentioned you've been putting in a lot of extra hours lately." The question sounded innocent, but I caught the look between the brothers. They'd been talking about me. "It's been hectic. We're implementing a new benefits system." "That sounds complicated," Rebecca said. "Are you working with outside consultants?" "Some, mostly internal coordination." "Which departments?" Helen asked sharply. "HR, finance, IT, operations, pretty much everyone." "And who's heading this project?" Simon asked. "Lucas Grant. He's the department head for strategic planning." Helen's eyebrows rose. "Lucas Grant, that's an interesting name. Very distinguished." "He's just a colleague, Helen." "Of course he is, dear." But her tone suggested otherwise. "So, this Lucas person," Helen continued, "he must be quite demanding if he's keeping you at the office until all hours." "It's not just him. The whole team works late." "How late?" Simon asked. "Sometimes until 8 or 9. Occasionally later." "That seems excessive," Helen said, "especially for HR. Ethan mentioned you've been getting home quite late lately, sometimes after 10, even 11. I glanced at Ethan, who studied his menu intently. "You've been discussing my work schedule with your mother?" "I mentioned you've been busy. Mum was asking why we hadn't been by for Sunday dinner." "Tell us about this Lucas Grant," Helen said. "Is he married?" "He's married. 2 kids. Very professional." "How nice. And his wife doesn't mind him keeping female employees at the office so late?" The question was a landmine. Simon and Rebecca exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I'm sure she understands work sometimes requires long hours." "Does she? I know if my husband was working late every night with the same female colleague, I'd have questions." "Helen, please." "I'm just saying not all wives are as understanding. Some might find that arrangement concerning." "You know what's concerning?" I said sharply. "That apparently I can't have a demanding job without my husband's family assuming something inappropriate is going on." "We're concerned about you," Helen said. "Marriage requires attention. When one partner is constantly absent—" "I'm not constantly absent." "Aren't you?" Helen leaned forward. "Because according to Ethan, there have been several evenings when you didn't come home until very late, with vague explanations about work emergencies involving this Lucas Grant person quite frequently." I looked at Ethan. "You've been keeping a log of my activities." "I've been worried about my wife. When someone you love starts acting differently, starts being secretive, you notice patterns." "Patterns," I said bitterly. "There's that word again." "Maybe because your behavior doesn't balance," Helen said. "Maybe because the woman sitting at this table isn't the same woman who married my son." "I'm exactly the same person." "Are you? When's the last time you seemed genuinely happy to see Ethan? Asked about his day? Initiated a conversation that wasn't about schedules?" Each question hit hard because they were valid. "Simon, you've noticed," Helen said. "Rebecca, you've seen it too." Rebecca looked mortified. "I really don't think—" "She has," Simon said quietly. You're different, Mireille. Distracted, like your mind is somewhere else. Somewhere else, Helen repeated. Or with someone else. You're having an affair. Several nearby diners turned to look. How dare you, I said, voice shaking. I'm stating facts. Explain the cash withdrawals, the hotel receipts, why you delete texts and guard your phone. My blood turned to ice. What hotel receipts? Helen smiled terrifyingly. The ones Ethan found organizing tax documents. $200 cash withdrawal, followed by a hotel charge for the same amount the same day. You've been investigating me. I've been trying to understand what's happening to my marriage, Ethan said quietly. This Lucas Grant, Helen continued, does his wife know about your late-night meetings? There is no affair. Then prove it. Call him, right now. Ask him to join us for dinner. The challenge was brilliant and devastating. I couldn't possibly call Lucas. That's ridiculous. I'm not calling my colleague to prove some point. Why not? If there's nothing to hide. Because it's inappropriate. Paranoia, Helen said slowly. Is that what we're calling it when a woman notices her daughter-in-law is having an affair? I am not having an affair. The words came out too loud. A manager appeared. Is everything all right? Fine, Ethan said. Just a family discussion that got heated. I was just leaving, I said, standing and grabbing my purse. When you're ready to have a rational conversation, you know where to find me. In my car, a text arrived from the anonymous number. Enjoyed the dinner show. Your mother-in-law is quite perceptive. Too bad you can't tell her how right she is. Someone had been watching. Another message. Go home, Mireille. Your husband will be along shortly, and you two have so much to discuss. Ethan came home at 10:15. We need to talk. I thought your mother covered everything. My mother was out of line. We talked about how to save our marriage. Is that what we're doing? I'd like to try. If you're willing to be honest with me. What do you want to know? Are you having an affair? No, I said. He stared at me, weighing my answer. Okay. My phone buzzed. Ethan grabbed it first, reading, Sweet dreams, lovebirds. Tomorrow's going to be a very interesting day. He scrolled up through previous threatening messages. Jesus Christ, someone's stalking you. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to worry you. What do they know, Mireille? What secret are they threatening to expose? I could tell him everything or lie one more time. I don't know. Maybe they think they know something, but they're wrong. He stared at me for an eternity, then stood. I'm going to bed. Tomorrow I'm calling the police about these messages. They'll want to know everything about why someone might be targeting you. After he left, I sat alone, knowing my time was running out. The police would investigate, ask questions I couldn't answer without destroying everything. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats. But tonight, I could still pretend my marriage was salvageable, even though deep down, I knew it was already too late.